Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah. This is my Granny Era. And today I want to talk to you guys about my April reading plans. Now there are quite a few challenges and read-alongs and things going on for the month of April. I do want to participate, and of course I have my piles of possibilities as normal, but I also have a massive pile of possibilities for Historathon Q2. It is my favorite quarter of Historathon, and so all of these April reads are going to be kind of back burner to what I really want to accomplish for Historathon Q2. I have purchased some new books for that challenge, and I'm going to make a whole video on my piles of possibilities for Historathon Q2 because there's so many things that I want to get to. So this video will just feature everything else, and then you guys can go and watch the Historathon Q2 one here in a day or two. Now, several of these also overlap, which I love. Someone actually mentioned that in the comments recently, that how funny it is to see as booktubers trying to fit as many books into as many challenges as we can, right? And play games, trying to fit all these puzzle pieces in, and it is super fun, yes. So one of the challenges that pretty much everything I'm going to read fits into is Katie's TBR Clean Out challenge at her channel called Books and Things. It's basically you just read as much from your long-term TBR as you possibly can. So everything that I'm going to show you is on my long-term TBR except for this first book. That is The Wonderful Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum. And this isn't necessarily on my TBR because I've read it before, okay? So it's a reread. But this is the book for our Children's Classic Challenge read-along that I am hosting. If you're not aware that I am hosting that, I have a read-along for each month. It's a Children's Classic book, and you guys can check that out in the Discord link below. You go to my Discord, there's going to be a section for 2025 Children's Classic read-along, and the list of books we're reading is pinned to the top there. So if you're just curious, go ahead and go check out that Discord. You don't have to join or whatever, just check it out and see what we're reading. But this is going to be the read for April, and I'm sort of cheating because I'm already a little ways into it. I have been reading this with my daughter Cynthia, and so I'm basically just going to finish it with her and be done. Now, this copy is called The Wizard of Oz. The story is actually called The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, but this one is The Wizard of Oz because it actually features 3 stories by L. Frank Baum. And I love this edition because if you can kind of tell, it's like it's cross-stitch, right? Or embroidery. And then on the inside, is like what the back of embroidery looks like. Isn't that so neat? So this little series of these books, there are several in them. This is the only one I have found. I found it in a bookshop in Michigan when Cynthia and I were there actually book shopping this summer, and so that's why I'm reading it with her first. But I would love to find more of these. If you guys know of a seller or an easy way to get these, it's Penguin Threads. So anyway, that's for the Children's Classic read-along. As I said, I will be participating in Historathon Q2, which features the year 500 through the year 1500, and I'll have a separate video for that, but a lot of the books I'm going to talk about next, throughout the rest of this video, they will count for that as well. One of those is this one, the Vinland Sagas. This is for Sagalong, which is an event that is hosted by Ven at Revenant Reads. It's a yearly event where we focus on reading medieval Viking literature. So these are some pretty simple reads. As you can see, it's really thin. There are 2 sagas in here, the Greenland Saga and Eric's Saga, and they basically tell the story of the Vikings' discovery of North America. And I love these stories. I read these in college, and then I taught a Vikings class at one of our homeschool co-ops to like middle schoolers, and they weren't into it as much as I was, but they tried. But I really enjoyed it. So this copy actually is heavily annotated, but I think it's actually heavily annotated by like 30-year-old me, like 15 years ago. So that's okay if I was the one that annotated it, but we'll go back and see, what I thought was important and what I missed. So I'm looking forward to reading that along with the other people participating. It's Ven at Revenant Reads, and then I'll put all the other co-hosts down in the description box along with him. All right, so that's gonna be fun. So then the next thing that I'm participating in is People April. Now I found out about People April through Debs at Rainer Read Stuff. This is actually hosted by Roz at Scally Dandling About the Books, and then also Elizabeth at Bokeens Books. And then Brian from Bookish are the ones that are all hosting this together. So People April, basically you read biographies, memoirs, books about people, right? So I have a few here that I went through my TBR, and I didn't take everything off of there that would qualify, but quite a few here, and some kind of little ones just because, you know, I want to read some, but I also just want to read a lot of stuff. So first one here is, this is 9 Parts of Desire, The Hidden World of Islamic Women by Geraldine Brooks. Now, I like Geraldine Brooks. I read several things by her, and this is a story, a women's studies story about women in the Middle East. I think it's going to be interesting, something I know very little about. Okay, next up is a book that I found at Barnes & Noble. They had a display to tempt me, and I got it. It's called All the Beauty in the World, The Metropolitan Museum of Art and Me by Patrick Bringley. Now, this guy, from what I remember, I actually haven't read the blurb in the back for a while, but I think this guy like quits his job and he goes to work at the Metropolitan Museum of Art as like a tour guide, and it just tells that story of like he got kind of out of corporate world, I think, and took this like chill out job and got in touch with his creative side and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's going to be good. I've had this on my shelf for several months since I bought it and been wanting to get to it, so we will try maybe for People April. Next up is a story by one of my favorite authors, Zora Neale Hurston. She wrote Their Eyes Were Watching God. You might be familiar with that story. This is called Barracoon, and it is the story of the last living black slave at that time. This man was actually still enslaved 50 years after slave trade was outlawed in America. So it's going to tell his story, and I have no idea why, but that is heartbreaking. So I'll let you guys know. All right, next up is The Diary of Mary Cooper, Life on a Long Island Farm from 1768 to 1773. I have no idea how I ended up with this book, but it's from some historical society, probably on Long Island, and it is like a diary. It's like all these diary entries. Probably interesting, right? Just to read about this random person who may turn out to be not so random. I've never heard of her, but the Historical Society thought it was worth putting her story in print and selling it for $15, so we'll find out. Next on the list, I have African American Women of the Old West by Tricia Martineau Wagner. Now, I got this when Lindsay and I went to Fort Smith this past September, maybe? Fort Smith, Arkansas. I did a video about our book shopping adventures in Fort Smith and some of the things that we saw. It's the one where we tour the Civil War, exhibits and things, if you guys seen that one. So this is a book that I got in that bookshop about African American women of the Old West. Here's some of the pictures on the back, and I think that will be interesting. Last for the People April pile, I have Eden's Outcasts by John Madison. This is the story of Louisa May Alcott and her father, Bronson Alcott. It is kind of a chunker for me anyway, and I'm not exactly sure how interested I am in reading this. Now, I like Louisa May Alcott, okay? I like Little Women. I liked her mystery stories that I read years ago in college, but I don't know if I can do almost 500 pages of her stories. So we'll start on it and we'll see. And if I can't, I'll send it to my mom because she loves Louisa May and she's a lot more patient than I am. So whoever gave me this book also gave me this postcard of famous people from Concord, Massachusetts. Do you see? There is my true love from long ago, Nathaniel Hawthorne. So this features Nathaniel Hawthorne, Henry David Thoreau, Louisa May Alcott, and Ralph Waldo Emerson, and the different homes that they lived in. There's a graveyard in the middle, probably where they're buried. And this is a bucket list for me for sure, is to go to Concord, Salem, all that stuff up there in Massachusetts. I think it would be fantastic. And my daughter wants to go for completely different reasons. She's a Revolutionary War fanatic, so she wants to do the whole Lexington Concord, all that. So maybe we will someday. But anyway, this is on the list, and I've had it on my TBR forever. So one of the challenge prompts for Katie's TBR challenge is to read something that has been on your list forever. And this has been on my TBR shelves for a really long time. The date that the last owner marked on this book is 2017, and then they sent it to me. So I probably had it that long, close to it. So that's People April. Now I'm going to talk about Spring into Adventure. So April and May are the months for the Spring into Adventure reading event. And this one is hosted by Sean at Shawnee Standfast, Greg at Another Bibliophile Reads, Gavin at Genre Books, Randy Ray, the Literate Texan, and Debs at Rainer Read Stuff. So they are all co-hosting the Spring into Adventure event, and basically you just read adventure books. And I don't really go for adventure naturally. I'm not at the store and I'm like, oh, I want to find me a good adventure book. But when I read one, I really like it. I really loved Around the World in 80 Days. I really loved the book I read that's called 80 Days, but it is the story of Nellie Bly and the other newspaper girl where they kind of race each other around the world. So yeah, one's a fiction, one's a nonfiction, and both were super interesting. So I think I might enjoy adventure books. But I have 3 here that I chose, and 2 of them actually can count also for People April. The first one, this I've had on my shelf forever, and it's pretty thin, so I'm going to go ahead and read it. This is Corrie ten Boom's biographical or autobiographical story, Tramp for the Lord. Now, Corrie ten Boom was a woman who, her first book is called The Hiding Place, and it talks all about how her family hid some people during the Holocaust, and then how they actually ended up going to a concentration camp. Corrie ten Boom's family did, and the devastating things that happened, and Corrie ten Boom survived. She moved to America, and she ended up ministering here, speaking to people, giving encouraging talks, and doing other sort of philanthropy type things. So this is kind of the story that takes place after The Hiding Place is finished. It talks about her time in the concentration camps, but then it also talks about her time after the war, where she lived in New York, where she was just living very destitute sort of existence. And then she goes on an adventure in Africa. I'm assuming it's some kind of a missionary journey, but it says adventures in Africa. So we'll read some more on Corrie ten Boom. One of those women, kind of like I was talking earlier in an earlier video about when I was saying how Agatha Christie is unassuming, Miss Marple is unassuming, but really inside they are like a powerhouse, right? And I think Corrie ten Boom was probably one of those people too. You look at her and you're like, she's, a little old lady, but I think that there's probably quite a bit of spunk and bravery, courage, wisdom, all those things. So I enjoy reading about people like that for sure. So adventure book, but also People April book. Next one for the adventure pile is A Lady's Life in the Rocky Mountains. This is by Isabella L. Bird. I think her story has actually been around for a while. So this is her biography, her story, her memoirs of her life in the Rocky Mountains in 1873. It looks like she actually didn't live there too long. She made an extended tour, it says, of the Rocky Mountains in Colorado in the U.S. She was on her way back to England from the Sandwich Islands, and she was traveling alone by horseback. And so it just talks about that and her time there. As I go through this book, I'm not sure that I will stick with it the whole time. She's going to have to probably really capture my attention right from the beginning, because I don't know, Old Westy stuff is just not something I'm super interested in. I grew up in an Old Western town. Like, Old West has just been like in my face my whole life. So I'm not super into, it, but if she captures my attention, I might just love it. So we'll see. All right, and then my last adventure book. This is A Mudlarking Year. Now, you guys know that I just ordered this and I've been waiting for it to come. I loved Laura Meiklum's first book that's just called Mudlarking. And so this one is her second newly released book about mudlarking on the Thames in London and nearby. And I think that that sounds like the most fantastic adventure of just searching up and down the shoreline, finding crazy stuff from so many eras, just from ancient times till now and everything in between. Like, that just sounds like the most amazing adventure to me. This woman like lives adventure every day. That's fantastic. Lucky her, right? So yes, I'm looking for an excuse to read it. So I'm putting it in as my Spring into Adventure, probably the first Spring into Adventure read that I will do. And then the final challenge that I will be sort of partaking in, I want to go ahead and mention, even though there's not new like books for it. Each month I have been doing the challenges at Anne's channel, In Search of Wonder. She is doing the Classics Challenge, and this month's prompt is to read a memoir. So I'll have that covered with my People April books. The Scavenger Hunt is to read a book featuring a famous person, a work of art, and war. So I think that I can cover those between these books, even if I can't find them all in the same book. And then the challenge for this month is to subscribe to a new channel, which I'm positive that I will do because I'm always subscribing to stuff. I subscribe to a lot of channels. And then she also runs the Jane Austen challenge because it's, Jane Austen's great big 250th birthday this year. And so she's doing the Jane Austen birthday challenge. The prompt for April is to read Pride and Prejudice, which I have read so many times, and I have read it recently, and so I'm not going to read Pride and Prejudice this month. I'm pretty positive I'm not going to, but I might still participate in the forum if that's okay, Aaron. You have to tell me if it is. But yeah, I've read it like 8 or 10 times probably, and so there's just other things that I want to read this month, but definitely would love to talk about it because it's one of my favorites, and so I might do that. All right, that's my April reading plans. I'm going to shut this off, and then I'm going to video my Historathon Q2 piles of possibilities. If you think this video is long, wait till we get to that one. I have so many good books to share with you for that one, and that, of course, is what I am so excited about, most excited about, to be quite honest. So look for that video here in a couple of days, and I will see you soon. Hope you're having a great day. Bye-bye.